All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to American Advocates. This is episode 41. I saw Glenn put that in the chat. Thank you, Glenn. Always on top of everything when it comes to that. And the stream has officially started before GTA 6 was released, so I consider that a success already. Plus, it started at around 9:30, so that's right around the time where I try to go live every night, 9:30. But a lot of times it winds up being later. It is what it is. There's a lot to discuss today. Once again, covering all of the topics when it comes to the Iran war, President Donald Trump, and the Supreme Leader Mojtaba, however you want to say his stupid fucking name, Mojtaba Khamenei, whatever. Delivered his first remarks today, made his first statements as the newly appointed supreme leader of Iran, and he didn't do it in person. By the way, he didn't. He only had his statement read off by a news anchor in Iran because very clearly he's in hiding, with rumored reports suggesting that he might be as injured to the point of where he's lost a leg. Perhaps these are rumored reports, of course, but coming from military intel sources, as well as the fact that most, if not all, of his family was blown to smithereens by the U.S.-Israeli strikes, which will no doubt radicalize him against America and Israel even more. So I'm going to cover some of the topics here when it comes to the Iran war, mainly being Mojtaba Khamenei's public statements and the Strait of Hormuz. We have more news coming in on the Strait of Hormuz. Hey, Scruffy, welcome back, man. We have more topics coming. We have more news coming in on the Strait of Hormuz, more oil tankers that were apparently struck last night. Going to discuss that, the economic implications of all of this, and what it really means here, what we could be looking at in the future here from a global economic standpoint and an American economic standpoint as we continue to watch oil future markets fluctuate radically. So, and then finally, I do want to discuss also what I mentioned yesterday. I was discussing how this is a massive gamble on Trump's part and Israel's part, and for very different reasons, right? And I was talking about how Trump is gambling on this being a quick success, with the regime ultimately being toppled. He was gambling, in part at least, what it seems like, on Persians rising up to assist the U.S. and Israel in overthrowing the regime. And he's gambling on the oil markets. He was gambling on oil futures only blipping up, like his energy secretary Chris Wright told him, and then promptly coming back down. And it seems like it's a gamble that's really not paying off for President Donald Trump or the United States much at all. And midterms are looming, and that midterm pressure is going to start to affect President Donald Trump and this administration and how they ultimately decide to handle this going forward. That's been Trump's biggest gamble, I think, in all honesty, was he's been gambling from an element of time based off of military intel on Iran having nuclear power, and he was gambling on this all being wrapped up and done very quickly, like in last summer. But we are now in day 13 with no end in sight. So it doesn't seem to be paying off. And then I mentioned yesterday on yesterday's stream that Israel's been making massive gambles here as well too, for a lot of different reasons. They're gambling on U.S. military success, and they're gambling on the regime also being toppled, but for different reasons. The United States wants the regime toppled, mainly because Israel does, but also because the United States wants a much softer and easier regime to work with in the future, and to ensure that this nuclear capability that Iran was striving towards will no longer be a goal of theirs. Israel wants that too, but Israel wants it even more so because Israel's main goal and objective in the Middle East is regional hegemony. Israel has the Greater Israel Plan that they're striving for. They believe it's their manifest destiny to take all the land between the Nile and the Euphrates, right? And so Iran, being the main power in the region under Israel, the next highest up, most powerful country under Israel, with, of course, Israel being the most powerful because they have nukes, they saw Iran really as the last remaining roadblock to that goal. And so for Israel, they need Iran weakened to the point of where they are no longer a threat to them whatsoever. And really what the problem was with Iran was the ballistic missiles when it comes to Israel. So Israel's main gamble here was basically gambling on the United States military success, and also their gamble is basically they've burned the bridge by doing this, a bridge that they already knew was on fire when it comes to American support for Israel. They see the writing on the wall, and I mentioned this last night when it comes to the demographic shift in accordance with the generational gap that I've discussed so much on this channel. The very obvious generational gap that is occurring right before our eye. The line is drawn where it's like you have Gen X and boomers, and they are largely in support of Israel, unquestionably so in a lot of cases. And then you have underneath that line, you have millennials and Gen Z. And the further down you go, from boomers who pretty much never question Israel, to Gen X who may question Israel sometimes but overwhelmingly support it, to millennials who pretty much do not support Israel but are sometimes perhaps willing to go along with the agenda to some degree, and then Gen Z, which are perhaps the most based generation by far. And I say that as a millennial, not a Gen Zer. But I'm only in my early 30s, so I'm close to the Gen Z gap, and I can relate with them pretty well. Gen Z is the most based when it comes to Israel. They don't support them at all, and they question everything. And I think rightfully so. Now that this war is taking place, I think it's deserved. But the bottom line is Israel sees the writing on the wall when it comes to this generational divide, and how the under 40 demographic, really is the best way to phrase it, is increasingly non-sympathetic to Israel and their agenda and them as a country, and increasingly not supportive of Israel, with, I believe, the latest statistics showing up at 45% do no longer support Israel in the under 40 demographic, with the number showing no signs of slowing down when it comes to an increase in that percentage. Very likely in the next 2028 election, that number will be at least at 50-51% for a majority, and it's only going to get worse. So Israel's gamble here, truthfully, was the fact that the bridge is on fire. We may as well burn it down in one last effort to use our alliance with America, and to use their military to take out the biggest threat that we're facing in the Middle East, that being Iran. And they probably view it from the lens of, hey, this destroys any future possibility of the younger generations in America liking us and wanting to support us. And this will definitely mean a severed alliance with America in the future. But at least if Iran is toppled, we can have regional hegemony or start working towards that goal much quicker. That's their gamble. And so I'm going to cover, honestly, at the end of the stream, I'm going to revisit what I said last night. And I'm going to discuss the possible outcomes now in the Middle East as a result of what seems to be lackluster attempts at these goals from both Israel and Trump. It doesn't seem, so far, on day 13, to be playing out the way that they intended, right? And so that forces us to start to look at what other outcomes could result from this. And I'm going to view it mostly from Israel's objective perspective this time around, and view what possible outcomes, what possible actions Israel might wind up taking as a result of that, because it's not looking great, in all honesty, just objectively speaking. And I hate to say that as an American, I stand, even though I disagree with this war 100%, I'm completely done with Trump as a Trump voter now, and I hope Democrats win the midterms. I've been very clear about that, because this war was a complete betrayal of the MAGA base. I'm done with Trump. I did vote for him. I'm a social and fiscal conservative, but I still support America. I'm an American nationalist. I expect our military to dominate, and I always support our troops, even if I don't support the war. And so, just objectively speaking, I have to say it's still not looking great, right? It pains me to say that, but it's true. We'll see how it plays out, though, right? And really what I want to start with, before I get into that, I want to start with a lot of the news that we got today when it comes to oil futures, the oil tankers, Strait of Hormuz, and the Iranian regime. So, and Mojtaba Khamenei making her statements. Before I do that, please, if you're watching right now, like the stream. It helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. You can like the stream by double tapping if you're watching on your smartphone screen, or if you're a boomer and watching on your computer, just hit the thumbs up button wherever you can find it. Also, be sure to subscribe to American Advocates for more content like this, and make sure when you subscribe that post notifications are turned on, so that way you're notified every single time I go live, which is pretty much every single night. So, I wanted to get into some of the news here first and foremost, and that was, of course, rehashing what I was covering last night. You heard it here first, maybe, most likely, maybe not, but most likely you heard it here first, that Trump was pushing for oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz to show some guts, literally a direct quote from Trump, I think, if I remember reading correctly, show some guts and pass through the Strait of Hormuz anyway. Trump obviously said that, feeling the pressure of the Strait of Hormuz being semi-locked down, at least by the IRGC, with a lot of oil tankers from a lot of different countries being understandably hesitant to pass through the region as a result of threats coming in from the IRGC, the Iranian regime, in regards to this. They're threatening to keep these straits shut down and basically attack and annihilate any oil tanker that attempts to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So, with good reason, a lot of these oil tankers are simply just sitting there now, and they're not attempting to pass through. And we're seeing oil future markets now becoming completely volatile, bouncing up and down all over the place, and it's causing our gas prices to soar. This is terrible for President Donald Trump, of course, with midterm elections coming up at the end of this year. This will not be something Americans forget, and the timing of all this has been poor. So President Donald Trump, no doubt feeling this pressure, literally did say, show some guts and pass through the Strait of Hormuz anyway. Now, what's really messed up about this is, though we have promised to insure any destroyed oil tankers up to $89 billion or $86 billion on a rolling basis, mind you, that's basically each individual circumstance where they might be destroyed. We've promised to insure these oil tankers up to that amount, 80-something billion dollars. We're not currently actually providing naval escorts through the strait like we said we would. We just don't deem it militarily possible. And I'll cover a little bit more on that in a second. But that's kind of what's messed up about this is you have Trump who's just telling all these countries, basically, you're a pussy, send your oil tankers through anyway. I don't care that the Iranian regime is threatening you. These oil tankers need to go through because our gas costs are going up and oil future markets are volatile. It's essentially what Trump was doing. He's kind of acting a little bit toddler-like, in all honesty there, but he's also doing so at the expense of human life. And so I actually found that both funny in a doomer way and also tragic. And what wound up happening was some countries, Bangkok, Thailand being one of them, had an oil tanker attempt to pass through, and it was promptly struck by an Iranian missile, I believe, and the crew had to abandon ship. Luckily, in that case, none of the crew members were hurt, and this happened 2 more times 2 nights ago. Overnight last night, 3 more oil tankers attempted to pass through the Strait of Hormuz and were once again promptly struck down by the Iranian regime. In some of these instances, actually, the Iranians are resorting to suicide boats, they're called now. And they're just sailing full speed ahead towards these oil tankers and detonating something and literally striking down oil tankers. So we're now up to 6 oil tankers that have attempted to pass through the Strait of Hormuz over the last 36 hours, I'd say, maybe 48 hours. I guess perhaps at the behest of President Donald Trump, who's telling them to pass through the strait and show some guts. And what's happened? Well, 6 of them have been shot down now by the Iranian regime. They've been struck, and they've been, one actually I saw a photo of, is literally just still floating in the strait, but completely smoldering. There's a hole through it. It's completely out of commission now. And this is going to cause the whatever fear index may exist out there to get worse, and it's going to cause oil futures to become perhaps more volatile as well as soar up even higher. So oil tanker traffic is now understandably slowing down to a crawl. And I was looking at live maps and I was looking at photos of, dot maps of showing what the traffic looked like just a few weeks ago in comparison to well, technically yesterday, now March 11th. And yeah, it's very obvious. It's slowing down to a trickle. This is now being dubbed actually as the worst oil shock, perhaps in all of recorded time. They're deeming it an oil shock worse than the 1970s, in which they're referencing what's called the 1973 oil embargo, where Egypt and Syria had attacked Israel, that ultimately started the Yom Kippur War, during which at its peak, 4 million barrels of oil per day were cut, causing the price per barrel at that time to triple, mind you, right? And the number that you want to pay attention to as well here is during the Yom Kippur War in the 1973 Arabic oil embargo, 4 million barrels of oil per day were cut. 4 million barrels per day, that's how we measure it. We measure it in MB/D, million barrels per day, right? So presently, this was one of the worst disasters in the 70s, right? And it's what we're referencing, 4 million barrels per day. Presently, the amount of oil carried by tankers through the Strait of Hormuz has plunged down from what would have been 20 million barrels per day to what is being dubbed a trickle, right? A trickle. So we're not even getting an exact number according to the reports that I was reading, but it is bad. It's getting very bad. And as a result of that, we saw oil futures shoot up over 100 again, but then it's settled currently at around $95. Brent crude oil. This is more of the, so when you type in oil futures on Google, what you're going to see is a number that reflects a little bit more of a domestic situation here in America. Brent crude oil is more of a global thing. This is global oil. This factors in a lot of different countries, right? Brent crude oil closed at $101. And so this is having a massive global effect as well, basically, is what I'm getting at here. And what we're seeing now with these oil tankers sitting in this strait. Hello, John Boy. Welcome back. Susan says the 70s shock sucked, even odd days of buying. I wasn't alive in the 70s, but if you were, I really appreciate your perspective on that. Thank you. They were attacked in the Gulf waters on each side of the strait, says Doug Martyr. Are you talking about recently, the strikes last night? Thank you, Mossad, for keeping us safe. Wonderful. Thank you, President Trump. You're the GOAT. Okay. Hey, Beck fan. What's up, man? So, where was I? Sorry, I just don't want to miss any of the chats here. And like I said, guys, please be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. I see the views are coming in, but please like the stream. It helps the stream perform well in the algorithm, and subscribe to American Advocates if you haven't already. Also, check out the link I have pinned in the chat down there. You can and should follow me on my X account at American Advocates Uncensored. I'm trying to build a community there, so if you're liking what you're seeing, join my community there as well. Thank you so much. Anyways, that's what I was saying. So with the oil tankers now hesitant to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, many of them are just sitting there. 6 of them attempted to listen to President Donald Trump. They showed the guts, and they ultimately paid for it with their tankers being struck down by Iran. And so now that they're sitting there and the oil's not being delivered, what we're seeing is a limited capacity now of tankers' abilities to pass through the strait, which is resulting in Gulf countries being forced to cut their production, because you can only, if you're producing oil, you need these tankers to be making the full trip through the strait and coming back to pick up more of the oil. So the production has been cut by at least, according to reports, at least 10 million barrels per day, because the storage sites now where these tankers will be picking up the oil have filled up to pretty much max capacity in accordance with what the IEA is reporting. And so we're seeing, we don't know the exact number of how many barrels a day it's been cut as a result of this strait being closed down, but what we do know was 20 million barrels per day was flowing through the Strait of Hormuz, and now it's been cut down to a trickle. And then when you look at the level of production that's been cut by Gulf countries around the area, it's basically been cut in half, at least, it looks like, by 10 million barrels per day at least. And so this is worse by far than the oil shock of the 1970s. Like I said, where at its peak we saw 4 to 5 million barrels of oil per day cut. And bearing in mind that at that time that resulted in oil tripling in price. So what can and should we expect at this point when it comes to if we're at a point now where 10 million barrels per oil a day, or maybe even worse, it could be 15, 16, 17, 18 million barrels of oil per day are being cut. What are we to expect then when it comes to the price of oil? Well, it's very likely going to get pretty bad. So oil futures, like I said, broke $100 per barrel today, settling at 95. And then the Brent crude oil, a lot of people don't know to look at that one, but that's the global oil. And this is important to remember too, because this is, once again, it's going to cause a diplomatic strain on a lot of our allies when it comes to this, because the Brent crude oil closing at $101 is bad for the rest of the countries, a lot of which are our allies. So, yeah, not good. And when you factor in the fact that the Iranian regime is making possibly absurd threats, but nevertheless ones that will be taken to heart by some people, they're threatening now to keep the Strait of Hormuz shut down until they see, well, not even until, they just want to keep it shut down, but they're basically threatening now that the Strait of Hormuz will remain shut down, and that as a result, they want to see price per barrel hit $200. That would be a disaster for us. $200 per barrel, though that seems very unlikely, would result in our gas prices per gallon soaring to anywhere between $7 to $10 if that happens. It could get very bad out there, is the bottom line here. So I'll cover a little bit more of the economic implications on that in a second. But I see my deputy moderator there, Glenn. He had to messages retracted or something was hidden. I don't know what Takudo was saying there, but It's very, hey, Glenn, you're not, obviously, Glenn, my moderator knows I'm a free speech absolutist. So if Takuto was saying something, either it was spam or he had to say something that violated YouTube community guidelines. Because pretty much most things fly in this chat, even if it's insults on me. I don't care what you have to say. Most of you are cattle anyway. Like, you're not really even worth addressing, to be honest with you. So I don't know what Takuto was saying, but it must have been bad. Dave Biggs 9879 says, past time to start producing here at home. We have billions of untapped oil in the U.S. Well, that I agree with. It was someone trying to get PayPal. Oh, yeah, foreign language spam. Oh, yeah, get them out of here. That's the true definition of deportations. You got to speak English in this chat. And if you don't speak English in this chat, we will find you and we will have you deported. I will call ICE on you promptly. So, yeah, absolutely. U.S.'s rules. I agree, by the way, with the drilling oil here. We definitely need to be doing that for sure. We also should be taking all of that Venezuelan oil for ourselves as well. So, and yeah, so I'm on board with that one for sure. Deported, says Glenn. Good work. U.S. is by U.S. is. Oh, look, it's Hussein. It's Hussein, guys. Tukir Hussein says the U.S. is ruled by PDF files. I got news for you, buddy. Most countries are ruled by PDF files. If your last name is Hussein, then you probably worship the Prophet Muhammad. And what age was, what was her name? Was it Iris? Iris, his lover? Wasn't she like 9 years old? Was that what it was? Or 12? So get real. Get serious. And if you read the Epstein files, you're aware most countries' government has been ruled by PDF files. So, yeah, but thank you for your input. Thank you so much. Scruffy says, are you a fan of the Ayatollah? Iran is based, says Charles Platt. Based, really? Okay. All right. As usual, Glenn, the cattle are in the chat, man. The cattle are here. Venezuela has a right to protect its oil and its interests. Fuck American imperialism. Well, here at American Advocates, I'm an American nationalist, and I say we fucking conquer Venezuela and we take Cuba next. I'm very against this war in the Middle East because Hussein, probably the country you're from, in fact, is a literal shithole that is so far beneath us, it's not even worth talking about or thinking about generally. Unfortunately, I have to now that our idiotic president decided to serve Israel's interest and go all out into a Middle East war once again, despite literally campaigning against doing so. Nevertheless, Tukir Hussein, nevertheless, or Charles Platt too, nevertheless, America is the world's hyperpower. So you won't find any differing opinions from that here on this channel, at least not with me, because I'm a Christian American nationalist. Swine are putting slop in the chat, as always. As always. Anyways, I wanted to get back. Let me get back on point here because these people are so far beneath me, they're not worth addressing. But the implications. I wanted to go over the possible scenario of $200 per barrel that Iran's threatening. I don't think it's likely. I don't think that that's going to happen. It's certainly not out of the realm of possibility. I predict oil cost per barrel will easily hit 120 to 130 though, and I wouldn't be surprised if it goes higher. 200 would shock me, but not to the point of where like I couldn't see it happening at all. So let's just imagine $200 per barrel. That's $7 to $10 per gallon of gas here in America, depending on what state you live in. Obviously, if you're in California, it's going to be $10. If you're in, some southern state, it'll be around $7. So that would be terrible as it is. And you got to bear in mind when it comes to this, midterms are on the horizon. And that's what's really the most mind-blowing in all of this when it comes to what Trump decided to do here, right? He tells us, this administration tells us, and I've made this point a couple times now, but I'll make it again. They tell us that mass deportations are too unpopular because of midterms, with midterm pressure, so we can't have those anymore. But then he just goes and just, at Bibi's request, just goes, yes, sir, we'll go to war for you, Israel. I know nobody likes this. Mass deportations are double in popularity as mass deployments, boots on the ground, which seems inevitable now. Mass deportations are double in popularity, closer to around 50% still, 50 to 53%. And when Trump first took office, it was 64% at its peak in popularity, mass deportations. This approval for the Iran war is bottoming out at like 21 to 26%. And you can look at all the fake phony polls all you want. Well, I saw one that said 94% approved. That's for the MAGA voter base. Not even Republicans in numbers are supporting this overall. It's the MAGA cult Trump sycophants that support it 94%. Because MAGA, like I've stated before, what started off as a necessary coalition in our American politics has rapidly turned into a complete cult where people worship Trump and they believe he can't do anything wrong because they've crafted this narrative that Trump is 18 steps ahead because he's a 5D chess grandmaster player. And so everything's pre-planned and thought out, and QAnon is giving him all the instructions on what to do, so Trump can't do anything wrong. And then they'll grasp at straws when he does make a mistake, and they'll say, well, this is what he's actually trying to do. And then one thing will go right, and they'll piece it all together for you, and they'll say, see, this one thing that happened, this is what Trump was going for. You just couldn't see it because you're stupid, but I'm super smart because I listen to Trump and I assume he knows what's best. I'm a plan truster and you're panicking. It defies all logic. And if oil cost hits $200 per barrel, my God, the GOP is going to be sunk for years to come. Don't just kiss the 2026 midterms goodbye, kiss the 2028 election goodbye, which is what we don't want. I do want a blue wave in the midterms because I want Republicans to suffer for getting nothing done on the mandate we gave them, right? I'm a big pusher of that. Don't vote Republican this year. Let them fail. They deserve to fail, and we don't owe them our votes. I've been pushing that on this channel for months now. Ever since I realized this Trump administration had turned its back on us, sometime around September, I started to really take a look and say, you know what? They're done. They're done. They're not giving us what they promised. Trump's flipping the script. Ever since September, it's only gotten worse. We're getting almost nothing what we were promised, and everything we were promised we wouldn't get. Some golden age. So I'm all in favor of Republicans losing in the midterms in catastrophic fashion. It'll be the right kind of shock that they need to their system to hopefully wake them up and course correct and start serving me and you and our interests. But 2028, we don't want a Democrat president, obviously. But if price per barrel hits $200, my God, the implications of this are bad. Let me tell you what that would mean, by the way. Not just $7 to $10 per gallon of gas, but also inflation could rise very likely an entire point or more if that happens. Also, a new Fed chair in May we're going to be getting, right? Jerome Powell's finally done. But if price per barrel hits $200 or just continues to rise, they would have to spike the interest rates. Whoever takes that chair, I can't remember his name. Is it Hassett, Kevin Hassett, or some other guy? I don't remember now. He's a dove for Trump, and it's very known he's a dove for Trump. But if the price per barrel just keeps going up, and especially if it hits $200 per barrel, not only will the inflation rise, but that would also mean that they'd have to spike the interest rates to combat it, and instead of lowering them like Trump wants. We're already at a point, by the way, where Trump wanted 2 interest rate cuts this year, and he wanted them quickly. He wanted one at the beginning of summer and one at the end of summer. That's already going to have to be delayed, according to the reports I'm reading. It's going to have to be delayed more to September and December, if anything, because of this war. It's literally because of this war. And it just goes to show once again that Trump is making decisions not for the best interest of Americans or even his own administration. This was purely a decision made on Israel's best interest. It's very clear. And I stated this last night. I was Israel neutral all throughout last year. I was reading into the Epstein files, which started radicalizing me a little bit more. But I decided, you know what? We avoided the war in Iran. Trump didn't fall for it. We got in and out in Operation Midnight Hammer. Israel can defend its own sovereignty, and if it can, it deserves to exist. But, so long as they're not meddling too much. Then you start to notice the fact that Bibi Netanyahu lives part-time in the White House. He's visited, I think, 7 times. Every other month is what it equates to. And it's like you just can't unsee this stuff anymore. And then now we're in war with Iran fully. And it's like that was the breaking point for me. I'm no longer Israel neutral. I am completely against Israel meddling in our politics. And I'm completely against this war. So as a result of this war, though, like I stated, this goes to show you. This was not done for our best interest. This was not, Trump didn't decide to do this after spending several hours taking into account how this would affect the everyday American. Very clearly, he didn't. And that's just a harsh reality for MAGA. They don't want to admit that. They don't want to come to terms with that. But that is the reality of it. So, and the fact that the new Fed chair that we've been looking forward to, because Jerome Powell has sucked. we'll have to delay, at the very least, lowering the interest rates, kind of just reinforces that point even more, in addition to the fact that our gas is now more expensive, in addition to the fact that the death toll is now 8 American U.S. soldiers who died in vain. I'll fucking say, I don't care how offended you get. Fuck you if you're a pussy bitch and you get offended at that. They died in vain, and they died for Israel, and no soldier should die for a foreign country. We didn't need to be in this war. It's now 8 soldiers dead. We have a plane that crashed today, though they insist it wasn't from friendly fire, right? Or not from friendly fire or Iranian fire. They insisted it was an accident. It probably was, it seems. But it's like, this is what war does. And this isn't even a war that we needed to fight. We didn't even need to be there. They didn't have nuclear warheads. All the intelligence is pointing to the fact they didn't have nuclear warheads. So what was this war about? I don't think we're ever going to fully know. This administration keeps moving the goalposts, moving it back and forth. It's about regime change. It's about Persian liberation. It's about nuclear warheads. It's about ballistic missiles. It's about regime change. Actually, it's not about regime change. What is it? We don't even know. They don't know. It's really what it is they don't want to say what it is. And it's just about helping Israel. So it's honestly getting crazy. And $200 per barrel is just, the fact that Iran's threatening that doesn't make it a guarantee, but I'm just here to say it. If that happens, it's just going to be worse. So as a result of this, of course, now what we're seeing. Actually, hold on. Let me take a look at some chats here. I don't want to keep ignoring chat. I see some regulars are in here. I know I can at least count on them to say smart stuff. Millions of people have now fled the war caused by Trump, separated from their families, and left homeless without food. Yeah, I mean, they're not Americans, so I can't say I care that much. Like, I don't want to be in this war, but don't confuse me as somebody who cares about Muslims and that part of the world. I'm completely a sociopath when it comes to the Middle East. I'm a young millennial. I grew up during the Middle East war. I'm tired of hearing about it. I don't care that much. I'm just going to be honest with you. I do not care. I care about Americans. I care about the fact that Americans are waking up and paying more per mile in gas costs now, and our cost of living is going to go up as a result of this, very likely. Our inflation is going to possibly get worse if the oil futures and the oil markets stay high. That's what I care about. You know, what's happening overseas is happening overseas. To be honest with you, I'm an American nationalist. I'm a Christian nationalist, but I'm an American nationalist. What's happening in other countries are their people's problem, which is why I never supported this war from the perspective of Persian liberation. I don't care. I'm not Persian. I'm just an American. I care about my quality of living, and every day I wake up and I take a look at what the everyday American's going through, and I take a look at that in comparison to what we were promised with the golden age, and I go, it's not happening. Our cost of living's not getting better. It's certainly not going to get better during a war, and the everyday American is struggling, especially young millennials and Gen Zers. Can't own homes. We're not in the stock market. We can't build wealth. Can't even find fucking jobs. So, you know, yeah, people are dying overseas. I guess objectively that's sad, but don't expect me to fawn and cry over it. I don't lose sleep over that. They're not my problem. And I don't care how sociopathic that sounds. I love my fellow Americans deeply. And that's really what I care about. And that's the perspective and lens that I speak about this war from. I speak about it from the everyday American perspective, not about the Persian liberation perspective. Okay, their problems are their own. We can't continue to be the nation that feels like we owe it to the rest of the world to try to provide them with the same quality of life we expect to have here. The same quality of life that our parents had that we no longer have anyway. And that's really the frustration in all of this, by the way. It would be one thing, by the way, if this was 1981 and I could go out and I was earning whatever amount per year, and I could go out and for just triple the price of what I was earning per year, I could buy a house again and a car again, right? So that my loan wouldn't be too high because I could put down an extremely good down payment on it, right? If I could go buy a home for $18,000 right now, and if I could go buy a car for $9,000 right now, I would be a lot less angry about this war. I probably would still not be supporting it based off of my principles when it comes to my belief in the Monroe Doctrine and when it comes to my belief about these being two foreign countries, Israel and Iran, that is, engaging in a holy war that has nothing to do with us, our way of life, or our religion. Our established religion is Christianity, not Judaism and not Islam. So I would still be outspoken about it, but I wouldn't be as outraged if I could buy a home like my boomer parents could for 18 grand and a car for 9 grand. But I can't do that, can I? I can't even find a fucking job. and I'm being replaced by foreign Indians and AI. So that's the perspective I speak from on it. And I don't care how calloused it sounds when I say that's why I don't care about what's happening overseas. That's their fucking problem. And now we've meddled in it and we've stuck our nose in it. So it's our problem too. But that's where I stand on that. 2009 Lifeguard says, I'm honestly starting to wonder if Trump is starting to lean towards resignation. I know that sounds insane, but he could set some boundaries for the aftermath. Just throwing it out there. You mean resigning from office? I don't think so. Not with Trump. Trump is about legacy. Trump wants to no doubt finish his term, which I think is still the most likely outcome. But Trump will want to finish his term, and he wants to go down as one of the greatest presidents of all time. Whether or not that's going to happen, I think it's more than likely it won't at this point. But yeah, I don't think he's going to resign. I know people are floating the health stuff with him, his swollen ankles and stuff. But he's 80 years old. That's just what happens with old people. Trump, objectively speaking, I'll say Trump is a workhorse and he's a mule. It's not impossible that he could pass away in office from old age, but I think it's actually unlikely. I think it's more than likely he finishes his term out, in all honesty. And I also think it's very likely he does get impeached, and it's not a 0% chance he gets impeached out of office. I've said that before. Because if this does turn into what they can define as a war, and Trump never got congressional approval for it, he's in big trouble. Scruffy says, it's been a long time since I last listened to, I don't know who that is. How's the party going? I don't know who you guys are talking about there. Dude is changing his tone. I like it, says Wiz Flipper. Who, me? Changing my tone. I agree with you, says Christine7. Thank you, Christine. Appreciate that. Be sure to subscribe to American Advocates if you haven't already then. That goes for everybody here. If you like my messaging, subscribe to this channel right now and make sure post notifications are turned on so you're notified every time I go live. And also, get these likes up. Get the likes up in this stream. What are you all, hate watchers? I have 68 hate watchers right now. Like the fucking stream. Double tap your phone. It's not fucking hard, you fucking invalids. Like the stream. Like it right now. Hit the thumbs up. Or honestly, swipe up and get the fuck out of here, you stupid goy cows. Jeez. Like, you guys are so stupid as it is. The least you could do is like the stream and promote this in the algorithm. That's like the one useful thing you do with your fucking lives, and you can't even do that. It's honestly sickening. You guys are so pathetic. How will America handle the immigration system for millions of people fleeing war under Trump's administration? Well, very clearly, here's a pattern that happens, and I pointed this out on my X today, actually. I have the link to my X account pinned in the chat there. You should go follow me on my X, American Advocates Uncensored. I did actually point out this is a pattern that's also a problem. This administration obviously won't, well, maybe politically they would even welcome some refugees. But the worst part about this is if this turns into a prolonged war in the Middle East once again, obviously these countries become war-torn, uninhabitable in some parts. There's death goes up, the death toll goes up, the citizens are in danger. Who really sympathizes with them? It's not the Republicans. They may, to save face and look politically more appealing to people, allow some refugees in. But it's the future Democrats that get power, in the form of the president especially, who then say, you know what, to make up for the past mistakes of this Republican neocon before me, we're going to reopen our borders in the South once again. Good thing there's no Trump wall that ever got built, so just come on in by the millions per year. And on top of it, we're going to start shuttling in via flights, large cargo flights, as many Middle Eastern refugees as possible to spare you guys the fate of your war-torn nation. Come on into America. And that's what's likely to happen. And that's like everything Trump ran against. It's one of the big problems with this war, and how, once again, it's working against our best interests and even against what Trump campaigned on. That's one great example. But see, that's the kind of futuristic perspective you won't get on most channels, which again is why you should fucking subscribe here. There's literally no one smarter than me on YouTube. Literally no one, okay? It's not even close. There's MAGA cheerleader channels who are like, Trump's going to show him this time. We're taking control of the Strait of Hormuz. He's going in. Fuck them. You should subscribe here. You're going to get the real deal, and that is the real deal. If this turns into a prolonged war, our country is going to be flooded by more fucking Muslims, and some of them are good people. Some of them are very apathetic to their Islamic religion, which is the best case scenario for them. If they're apathetic, they're not likely to be hostile, but they don't belong here. I don't care about them. I don't want them here. I don't care what kind of problems they're facing. Their survival is their own personal responsibility. They should stay in their fucking country, and we shouldn't welcome them in here. I don't care even if this war is our fault. I don't want them in here. Let alone the fact that every time we offer the refugee thing and sanctuary cities and shit, it's always sleeper cells sneaking in with the refugees, which is what we're seeing right now. We're seeing an increase, an uptick of what's very likely sleeper cell incidents. We're seeing Muslims now committing acts of terror domestically. A mass shooting in Austin, Texas. Hand grenades being thrown at some white guy who brought a pig roast outside into New York City to piss off Muslims. And then there was another one that happened. We're up to 3 now, right? And that's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. We just killed their religious leader, Ali Khamenei. What else did we expect to happen? And the worst part about it is, like I stated earlier, no mass deportations, complete surrender on immigration policy from this administration. And they're telling us, you know, the boomers especially, their narrative is, well, these Arabs, we got to take the fight to them, these Arabs. We got to take the fight to them overseas before they come here. They're already here. What are you not understanding? They're already here. Have you not heard of Dearborn, Michigan? It's a 52% Muslim population. They changed street sign names to Ali Khamenei Way. Or not Ali Khamenei. Osama Siblani Way. They changed the street sign names there. They're colonizing cities. They wanted to separate and create a community off of Dallas, Texas, where they wanted to build mosques and create their own city and not allow white people and other Americans in. They're already trying this shit, and they're here already. And this administration doesn't care. They don't care about your fucking safety. They care about Israel's safety. That's why all of our military and our fight against them is overseas. Even though they didn't even have ballistic missiles that could reach us, and they didn't have nuclear warheads. That's where they care, and they care about it because it's more of a detached outcome. I just sat here and told you I don't care about the people that suffer as a result of this over there. I only care about Americans. Well, the bottom line is I'm not alone in that thought process. You may want to virtue signal in my chat and go, I can't believe this arrogant fucking guy. How could you not sympathize and empathize with the Persian Muslims and the blah, blah, blah? I don't care. And most Americans won't admit it like I do, but they don't care either. And that's what's so advantageous about wars overseas like this. We're detached from the reality of it and from the outcomes of it. That's why they do it. And it's profitable for the people like Senator Lindsey Graham. They make money off of this. Our politicians profit off of the military-industrial complex. And when a war's overseas, we can hear the news, we can read the reports, we can even see occasional footage, but it's not directly impacting us. And so that's part of the problem as well. Speak for yourself. I invest in oil. I want $400 per barrel, says Bryant T.S. Pross. Hey, good for you, honestly. I can't even hate you can't hate the player, right? Just hate the game. 2009 lifeguard says, and if he did resign, set up an artificial lame duck period where he could do who knows what. Yeah. Read the Bible. You're not a Christian, says Monkey. Thank you. Wow. Monkey17 wants to give me spiritual and religious advice. Thank you, Monkey17. Wow, what a credible source you are. Yes. By the way, I've never read the Bible. I'm just a Christian, but I've never read the Bible. What's the Bible? Is that like the religious book for Christianity or something? Only America. Thanks for not being a total cuck, says WizFlipper. Absolutely. I'm not a cuck at all, by the way. The cucks are usually the liberal men. 2009 lifeguard says, but Trump looks tired more than I've seen. Well, he's old, and I agree, he does. And I noticed that while he was campaigning in 2024, but they realize the Democrats and Republicans don't have your best interest. Yeah, they don't. That's true. But back then, you were also not going on 2 vacations a year. Back then, you were counting dollars. Are you talking about the 80s? Are you trying to give me boomer advice? The next thing you know, you're going to be telling me, hey, just stop spending $3 a day on your stupid energy drink. I can't believe you buy energy drinks. That's $3 a day. Do you know what you could do if you saved $3 a day? That's $21 a week. That's $42 every 2 weeks. That's $84 a month. That's $840, $900. That's close to $950 a year. My God, if you could just save $950 a year, you'd own a home by now. Shut up. Military contractors are hiring. Adam Nichols, 1002. America doesn't have a national religion. America's national religion. Well, America doesn't have a national religion, but we were founded on Christianity. That is correct, by the way. We do not have a national religion, and our amendment does protect against that being established because of the history of where the settlers came from. They witnessed what happened, obviously, when an entire country forced one religion on the people. However, Christianity is the religion that America was founded on. And most states actually in their original state constitutions even recognize that. So not a national religion. If I did say national religion, that was a slip up. Nevertheless, this is a Christian nation, that is for sure. Other than that, you are correct. No one wants this war. Yeah, agreed. How do you get rid of these 20 million invaders, says Leprechaun Ginger? You deport them. And you do so over a culmination of various different presidential administrations. It can't be done in 4 years. It would probably take about, well, on the fast end 10, but even more than that perhaps. Love the way you handled the Blige in chat. Absolutely. I don't like the stream, you bitch. You bitch more than my wife. Man up, Buttercup. Wow, what a boomer. God, what are you? How is a 65-year-old boomer like you watching a vertical live stream on YouTube? Don't you have like Fox News to watch? Bitter biscuits. Machine gun nest on the southern border with armed drones. All the dumb swine. There's so many dumb swine in the chat, Glenn. I'll give you some credit. You do your homework and you're firm and consistent in your views. Always 2000 lifeguard. That's because I speak from a place of conviction. I believe in what I'm saying. I'm not here to virtue signal. I'm not here to say the popular thing. If I was, I would just say, my God, wow, guys, we're in the golden age right now. I mean, did you see? I mean, the gas prices went up, but Trump said today that that's actually a good thing. Like, do you understand how well off America is now? I hope this Iran war goes on for another 15 years. We sure did take the fight to them. Wow, what a great thing. I mean, I voted for this. If I started saying that, I'd attract all the wealthy boomer Republicans and I'd be getting $100 donations in my chat. I don't care. I'm not doing that for this. I'm doing that to speak the truth. The truth is the most important thing. And funny enough, like I've stated, the truth is the first casualty of war. So it's even more important than ever to be critical. How do you think Native Americans felt? I am a Native American. My family's been here for 4 generations now. I'm a Native American. So yeah, whatever your name. Geez, what a ridiculous name. If you're talking about indigenous Indians, when your ancestors started killing them off, they were killing us off as well. So we were more in a war with a bunch of different various savage indigenous tribes. We settled these untamed lands and we turned it into a nation. One nation under God indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So how did the indigenous Indians feel? I don't frankly care how they felt. I'm the Native American now. My generations have been here for my family has been here for generations, is what I should say. Yeah, get rid of Hussein if you need to, Glenn. That's fine. I don't like his last name. Good to see Sheriff Glenn. That's right. Or no, what was Greg Bovino's title for Border Patrol? He was the commander at large. That's Glenn. Glenn's the commander at large. You are a psychopath. I love it. Hold on, wait. Stop everything. $3 super chat from Glenn. Glenn, once again, I have to reiterate, Glenn is my free mod. He cleans my chat out for me. I pay him nothing. And then he pays me. This is American capitalism and the free market on display. I say that every time, but it's so true. He says, boomer advice, don't spend this $3 on an energy drink. I definitely will be spending it on an energy drink. Stop everything again. Are you a Jew? No, I'm not. I am German and British. Stop everything, though. BeckFan77 coming in with a $5 super chat now. He says, if you paid the minimum wage of $1.25 in the silver quarters of the day, you would be making roughly $75 in today's money per hour. That's a hard hitter right there. Okay, let me get back on point, guys. Appreciate the super chats from BeckFan and my moderator, Glenn. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. These are tariffs, by the way. The rest of the people in chat should be taking note. Many of you owe me tariffs for speaking such stupidity in my chat. Okay, yeah, I wanted to get on point here again. So, Pre-1964. Important to note there, Beck fan says pre-1964 when it comes to the silver quarters. So Trump, what we're doing right now, Trump to try to combat the rising oil futures cost as a result of course, the Strait of Hormuz not being able to be locked down. Ultimately, like I stated, I believe this administration severely underestimated the Iranian regime. And I don't say that with a smile on my face, and I don't say that happily so. I'm totally against this war, but if we're going to be there, I want America to have the best possible outcome because it's hurting us. And so I believe they really underestimated this. They don't have the Strait of Hormuz on lockdown like they probably thought they would. And the Iranian regime is at least doing enough to really threaten the safety of the oil tankers and their crews to the point where it's coming to a crawl. So to combat this, Trump and other countries like Britain and Japan, who are other IEA member states, have agreed to release 400 total million barrels of reserve oil. America's kicking in around 172 million. And this will essentially buy us around 20 more days of time, basically. This essentially, when you're dipping into global oil reserves, is like slapping a Band-Aid on the problem. That's really what this is. And this could pay off. This could work. It's hard to know for sure the information that we're getting around this war. It's hard to know what's truth, what's fiction, what's propaganda, and what isn't. So, excuse me. So 20 more days of time could be enough to fix the problem. And hopefully it is, because when you factor in we've already been in war there now for 13 days, and you add 20 on, that's 33, and that's over a month. I don't think this administration planned on being there longer than about a month. They projected 4 to 5 weeks, something that I hope all Americans, including MAGA cheerleaders and Trump sicko fans, hold him to, because they should. And so 20 days of time should theoretically, based off of the timeline projections we've gotten from Trump, that should be more than enough to solve the problem. And it should be enough to keep the oil futures prices down, the price per barrel, lower the price per barrel down to a more acceptable rate so our gas prices don't skyrocket to whatever, they're $4 a gallon. We don't want to see that, right? So if America can take control of the Strait of Hormuz, or at least ensure safety better there, it should be all good. However, U.S. intelligence agencies believe that Iran's government is firmly in control of the region despite nearly 2 weeks of the sustained military strikes, and where we've killed basically, I think it's 49 or now 50 of their major leaders and commanders. And this is according to officials. I actually have that report pulled up here. It says U.S. intel warns Iran regime is not in danger of a collapse even after top leaders wiped out in strikes. U.S. intelligence agencies believe Iran's government remains firmly in control despite nearly 2 weeks of sustained military strikes that killed senior leaders and commanders, according to officials. Sources familiar with the reports told Reuters on Thursday that the clerical regime remains cohesive and in authority across the country even after the killing of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei in the opening hours of the conflict on February 28th. A multitude of intelligence reports provide consistent analysis that the regime is not in danger of collapse and retains control of the Iranian public, one source told Reuters on Monday. The most recent assessment was completed within the past few days, the source added. The findings come as political pressure grows on President Donald Trump to bring the largest U.S. military campaign since the 2003 Iraq invasion to an end amid rising oil prices and uncertainty over the war's objectives. Since the operation began, U.S. and Israel forces have targeted Iran's air defenses, nuclear infrastructure, and senior leadership figures, killing dozens of officials and high-ranking commanders in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Earlier this week, Iran's Assembly of Experts, a powerful body of senior clerics, declared Mojtaba Khamenei, son of the slain leader, as the new supreme leader. The sources cautioned that the situation remains fluid and could change, which is true. War's always a roll of the dice. Stop everything. Oh my God. Stop everything. AT 1337 has now forced a new record when it comes to super chats here. I'm seeing it says U.S. cannot succeed Operation Epstein's Fury, and he's given a $44.99 super chat. Appreciate that so much. Thank you so much. Operation Epstein Fury, I've heard people call it that. I don't truthfully think that's what it's totally about, in all honesty, but I've been reading the Epstein files, and that's something I've been meaning to cover on this channel. the Epstein files, people don't understand what the Epstein Island actually was, I think. They just view it as some sort of satanic pedo island where it was one sadistic man who was committing a bunch of depraved acts with minors. And it's so much more than that. And when you really start to dive into those files and you really take a look at what was happening, you understand that island was an operation, and it was an operation that played a large part, in large part, what we're kind of seeing now. It was a blackmail operation island that did commit depraved acts, and it was used honestly as an operation to further blackmail world leaders and politicians into doing stuff that we're doing now. By the way, like Trump committing to this war. Trump committing to this war when he campaigned on no new wars should make it very clear and evident to most people here. Oh, by the way, it's $44.99 TRY, whatever that is. That could be like 2 cents for all I know. That's what's even funnier about that. What is $44.99 TRY, Glenn? Can you look that up for me? TRY $44.99. I bet you that's like 2 cents. But I'm glad he did that anyway, because I haven't tied this point in, and people do need to understand this. The Epstein Island, you got to read those files to really understand what this is, right? And the Epstein Island played a part in this. In fact, Epstein himself talked about a future Iran invasion. He talked about it all the time, and he joked about how the stupid Goy Americans would eat it up, and they were dumb. And this was all mentioned in these files, in emails directly linked with Jeffrey Epstein himself. And so people have to understand this. Trump going to war, despite campaigning on no new wars, should be a clear indicator to you that our democracy or republic, whatever you want to call it, I believe our republic's technically already dead and we're not getting it back. But our democracy, whatever this government is a facade. It's like a theater at this point. It's maintained to give us the illusion that we're still in control. But really looking at it and looking at this Trump administration, which was supposed to be for the people, right? We at least thought that Trump, who couldn't be bought, we were told, would do stuff for the people. And really, this just confirms to me that that's not the case. This constitutional republic is dead. We're not represented at all. And there's much higher authority at play here that is basically dictating to a bunch of different countries, especially America, what to do. I think that should be very evident to people. The Epstein Island shit, though those days are over now for that particular thing, the Epstein Island itself, those days are done. That plays a part into what's actually at play here. And people don't understand the big picture of that truly. They just think it's a bunch of pedos and Trump's a pedo protector. And people who say that to me very clearly indicates to me they don't understand actually what that was. And it was a blackmail operation tied in with various different intelligence communities like IDF, Mossad, and CIA and MI6. And it was all just a culmination of that. And it was being used to basically control world leaders. And that played its part, a large part, into what we're seeing with stuff like this with Iran, which defies all logic. It just does. This defies all logic. A president who is acting on behalf of the American people and in our best interest and governing from an America First perspective would have never brought us to this war. It's happening for a very distinct reason. So see you at midterms, asshole, independent registered voter. Well, who are you voting for then, Jimmy? Don't call me an asshole if you don't know what my stance is. Oh, TRY is $1. Well, hey, thank you for the $1 anyway. What's his name? AT1337. Appreciate it. Not a record-breaking super chat or tariff though, by any means, but it was more than the Epstein Island. It was the wrench in New Mexico and Mar-a-Lago. Duh, look at the electoral system. Yeah. Why do you think U.S. is attacking Iran? I just answered that, so. Okay. Seems like a lot of goy slop and swine slop in this chat right now. Where was I? Yes, that's where I was. So, they believe that the Iranian U.S. intelligence agencies have done reports. They've analyzed the area. They believe that the Iranian government is still in pretty firm control of the area. So that's where I left off. I wanted to use that to lead me into the fact that Mojtaba Khamenei delivered his first remarks today. He made his first statement since being appointed as the new supreme leader of Iran. And he didn't do so in person. He didn't do so probably so as to not reveal his location, because Trump has already expressed great displeasure in the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei. Trump himself saying, I don't think he can exist in peace, which basically means if we find him, we're going to kill him too. And so Mojtaba Khamenei delivered his remarks via a handwritten statement that was read out by an Iranian news anchor. But in his statement, these are the following talking points that he mentioned. First and foremost, he stated that the Strait of Hormuz must remain closed and that the Iranian regime must use the closure of the Strait of Hormuz as a tool to pressure the enemy, of course, being Israel and the U.S. He then went on to state that Iran will also continue to attack its neighbors. Now, this is a point that I've addressed in prior streams about how Iran is playing dirty, and it is objectively, strategically brilliant for them to be doing so, because Iran is viewing it from the lens point of they have nothing to lose. And this was something that caught even Pete Hegseth and the Pentagon off guard. He pretty much even admitted it as such, stating that they felt like this was a possibility, but they didn't think there were good odds that it would be played out this way. Nevertheless, it is. Iran decided to go scorched earth, anticipating a strike from the U.S. and Israel. This time around, they didn't call us ahead of time to notify us that they were striking back on an already empty U.S. military base in Qatar. This time they went scorched earth. They launched everything at our Navy, at Israel and Lviv, and decided to launch an attack on all of their neighbors. You know, some of those neighbors, of course, being recently developing alliances between the U.S. and them, like the United Arab Emirates and Qatar and, you know, all these other Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia. So they did this to apply pressure diplomatically on the global stage when it comes to the United States. And it is objectively smart. This further pressures President Donald Trump to take this into consideration when it comes to continuing a long drawn-out war in Iran. If Iran is going to continue to punish all of its neighbors for America's actions, it's the equivalent of like a teacher punishing the entire class for one fat ass deciding to continually interrupt the class. The idea is the rest of the class goes to that fat ass who's getting everyone in trouble because the teacher's punishing everyone and basically bullies them or applies pressure to them to stop doing what he's doing. And so it is objectively a smart strategy, especially because for some reason the Pentagon didn't think it was going to happen. They said they basically thought it's possible, but it's not likely. Well, it's happening. So there's that. Stop everything. Another super chat has come in from Shadow Warfare 117, a loyal viewer. Appreciate you for $2. Thank you so much for paying your tariff. I appreciate that. And he says, the cattle will not outshine us. Never, never, ever. They are just here to graze on my wisdom. But because they don't have any wisdom prior to grazing on mine, they're not wise enough to be wealthy enough to pay their tariffs. So unfortunately, it's the smart chatters in my chat, like Shadow Warfare and Beckfan and Glenn, who have to carry the load. Unfortunately, it is what it is. Like I've stated before, if I could just tap on names of people who are stupid in my chat and suck $2 out of their bank account just for being dumb, I would totally do it. But it just doesn't work that way, sadly. Lazy H. Acre says fertilizer prices are up about 20% since the start of the war. It's planting season in America. Yes, it is. And for farmers, that's going to have big implications as well. So not that we don't bail out so many of the farmers every year anyway at the end of season, but yeah, a lot of fertilizer passes through the Strait of Hormuz as well, and that's not nearly as talked about as oil. And once again, that's why a prolonged excursion, as Trump wants to call it here, could be devastating in multiple different ways. Oil prices going up, gas prices going up means cost of transportation goes up, which already means an increased cost in our goods. If on top of it, farmers have to pay more for fertilizer now, that means another tacked on increase in cost of goods. So it doesn't look good for anything. There's no way to justify a prolonged excursion war. But Ali Khamenei, back on point. Ali Khamenei also went on to state, after stating he would continue to attack his neighbors, which, like I stated, does apply pressure onto President Donald Trump, and after stating that the Strait of Hormuz must remain closed, he would then go on to warn and state that all U.S. bases in the Middle East must close immediately. And he stated they must close immediately because they will be attacked. And then finally, he stated that Iran will not refrain from avenging the blood of its martyrs. And so what he's going on to state there when it comes to avenging the blood of the martyrs, this is perhaps one of the biggest problems that we're facing with Iran. And I addressed this point on a different stream a couple of episodes ago, and I'll address it again. But stop everything. Oh my God, $44.99. That's like the biggest. I'm just kidding. Obviously, I'm not going to fall for that again. But thank you so much again. That's another $1, according to Glenn. TRY. He says, Israel was promised Iranian missiles 3,000 years ago. Everything was promised to Israel 3,000 years ago. You got to bless Israel. The Bible tells us to bless Israel. Have you not read Genesis? Actually, sorry, I don't know. According to one chatter, I'm not a Christian. I don't know what the Bible is, so I certainly don't know what it says. So I definitely don't know about Genesis 12 and how it says to bless Israel, because God will bless those who do. And then I certainly would never directly link that to the reality of the fact that Jews were kicked out of their own homeland and their own country. They were kicked out of Rome, and Israel only became a country in 1948, which means, of course, that up until 1948, you couldn't bless Israel. So I wonder who was receiving God's blessing before 1948 in accordance with Genesis 12. I certainly wouldn't ever directly link any of that together. I don't know anything about that. I'm a phony Christian who doesn't read the Bible. I don't even know what it is. So, but yeah, everything was promised to Israel 3,000 years ago. Anyways, back on point again. Thank you again for the super chat. Appreciate you. What's your name? I should remember. AT1337. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So, on point here. What I was referencing when his final statements, basically, Mojtaba Khamenei's first statement as supreme leader. Iran will not refrain from avenging the blood of its martyrs. Well, there's a couple of things to point out here. First and foremost, I haven't addressed this issue yet on this channel, but basically, if you don't know already, a school in Iran was struck by attacks, missile attacks. It was bombed, basically. To devastating effect. So the death toll in regards to that situation alone, I believe, rose to around 140. This included a lot of Iranian children. And so naturally, this has upset the Iranian regime and people, right? Now, right off the bat, Trump was trying to gaslight people on this into believing somehow, for some reason, that Iran decided to strike their own school and kill their own children. That was basically the explanation at first. It was, well, it wasn't our missile, and it probably wasn't Israel, so it must have been Iran. And they're sick people. Nobody was believing that, right? It had to be either Israel's missile or America's missile. Now, more reports and investigations are being carried out on this, and it's looking like it's going to turn out to be one of America's missiles. It's going to be an American bombing run that ultimately took out the school. The worst part about this is, in accordance with the story and the reporting we got, the school was struck to devastating effect. Emergency crews pull up, obviously, in Iran to deal with the casualties and the injured, and then 40 minutes later, a second strike comes and strikes even more people who survived and the emergency crews. So this is going to radicalize the Iranian people, and this is a point that I made a couple of episodes ago live here on this channel. One of the biggest issues with dealing in the Middle East is they're religious zealots, right? And that goes for the Jews and Judaism. Rabbinic Jews are religious zealots. Orthodox Jews are religious zealots. They compare every country they're at war to with Amalek, right? And Amalek is taken out of the passage of, again, I don't read the Bible. I don't even know where this is from. I don't know how I know this. It's all coming to me straight down. It's divine. It's all coming divine right now. 1 Samuel, Amalek, the Amalekites, and God's instruction to wipe out everybody, all of the Amalekites in their totality, including men, women, children, and their animals even. And actually, at the time of that verse, the God's people failed. The Israelites failed to do this. They had mercy on some of the people, and God actually punished the Israelites for not following through. So Israel's motto oftentimes now, when it comes to countries like Iran, they always say, "Well, they're the Amaleks now. We got to wipe them out in totality." They're religious zealots. That's what that is. The rabbinic Jews and the Orthodox Jews are religious zealots, and obviously so are the Muslims. They're religious zealots as well. And so that's the big problem with the Middle East, and why America should be adopting the Monroe Doctrine. We should be dealing with countries like Venezuela and Cuba right now, and we should be dealing with our southern border. And maybe even focusing a little bit on Canada, not for conquest's sake, but because Mark Carney is a sniveling snake who's welcoming increase in Chinese influence. Our Western Hemisphere is what we should focus on. And our founding fathers, they acknowledged that, and they were the ones that were quick to point out that reality. When you get involved in a holy war with two separate religions, not our American Christian religion, Judaism and Islam, you're poking your head in something that's going to be never-ending, full of zealots, full of radicals like we're seeing, and now we've radicalized them even more. We've targeted a school, it seems accidentally so, but we targeted a school. We bombed it twice. This school was reportedly filled with a lot of the daughters of a lot of the leaders of the Iranian regime. They're going to be radicalized. We took out an entire family, and the son survived. Mojtaba Khamenei. His father was killed, and reportedly his wife and daughter were killed. Even more so, the rumored report is Mojtaba Khamenei is missing a leg. That's going to radicalize them more. So Mojtaba is referring to the general loss of life in Iran due to the U.S.-Israel strikes in Tehran, and also referring to the accidental strike on the Iranian school. This is going to radicalize them. That's what's important to understand here, right? So that's first and foremost. Now, as a result, he's promising to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, obviously so, and they're going to do so to detrimental effect, and they're going to do so in a scorched earth manner, and we are seeing that. Some of the oil tankers that were struck last night were taken out by Iranian suicide boats. That's what zealots do and radicals do. They will blow themselves up to honor their country and religion, and they're doing that. So it's not even about the U.S. military going in and taking out, their missile systems, their ballistic missiles, and monitoring the coast of the Strait of Hormuz on both sides. The Iranian people are they're just using suicide boats now. And it's hard to stop that level of dedication to the cause. It really is. We've had problems in the past wars with other countries and their people where they were just dedicated to their country or religion in a nationalistic manner to the point of where they would just charge at soldiers and get killed for it. So long as they could at least try to take out one person, that was the goal. This is the problem. So they're going to keep the Strait of Hormuz shut down. And meanwhile, you have Scott Bessent now, our Treasury Secretary, saying, well, the U.S. Navy will begin giving escorts to oil tankers like they said they would in the Strait of Hormuz as soon as it's militarily possible. So we're not even promising that right off the bat. Then you have Trump saying, show some guts and sail through anyway. Oil tankers that have followed the behest of our president and done so, 6 of them have been struck down, and they're smoldering in the Strait of Hormuz. The crews had to abandon ship. The rest of the oil tankers aren't passing through, and we're losing out on hundreds of millions of barrels per day now. On top of that, the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, mind you, I reported on him, I think it was yesterday. Every day becomes a blur lately. Chris Wright was the one who posted the fake social media story about how the Navy was already giving escorts to the oil tankers, and he reported a fake report. He posted a fake report on his social media, seems to be by accident, not deliberate market manipulation. But he posted a fake story about how we successfully already escorted using our Navy an oil tanker completely through the Strait of Hormuz. And this, at the time, caused the oil futures to drop under $90. And then within hours, he just deleted that post without explanation, and the oil futures shot back up. The same guy that is also stating, in correlation with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, that the U.S. naval escorts is just not possible right now. And again, this all goes to show you, in all honesty, that this was not thought out at all. This was done quickly and rapidly in an unprepared manner, and even worse, when you tie in the fact that Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Speaker Mike Johnson did admit verbatim basically that Israel forced our hand and forced us to strike first. You can only assume that that was very likely then us striking before we were fully prepared to. And it's all showing itself when you read these reports. It's becoming more and more clear that this is a sloppy war. This is once again Trump winging it. He's winging it, is what this is. And I don't know how you get to a point where you conclude anything else. You have to be a QAnon delusional idiot to think this is 5D chess, Trump's 18 steps ahead, and all of this is being done for our benefit. I mean, you're just eating propaganda slop out of the trough at that point. And then to make matters worse, here's Trump says this today. Meanwhile, he's literally saying rising oil prices. He says it's good for America. It's good for America. Don't you know? Our country does so much with oil. The oil price is going up. It's good for us. Is it good for me or good for America Inc.? That's the question at this point. And I think we all know the answer. I'm not going to see benefit from rising oil prices. America Inc. will. America, our country will. Yes. Yes, we sell oil. We'll capitalize off of rising oil prices. Wonderful. When will I feel the effects of that? Ask yourself that question. So stupid. No plan, no real care, and he's just winging it all in the name of a foolish holy war. I'm so done with this. The IRGC knows, and this is what leads me into this. This is what I said I wanted to the final thing I want to talk about on this stream. Well, I'm at that point right now. The bottom line in all of this, and I see there's idiots like Stephen H. This guy's so dumb. Let's go back to Biden then. Would Biden have gotten us into this war? I didn't vote for Biden. I voted for Trump. You're the retard in the chat right now. Oh, I can't believe this guy's saying that Trump's not doing something good. Oh my God. Yeah, I got more news for you, Steven. I want to see them get crushed in the midterms, and I want to see Trump impeached. How does that make you feel, you boomer cuck? Go to bed, Steven. It's a little bit late. It's 10:48. I would say your wife's waiting for you, but we all know she doesn't fuck you anymore. So go to bed, okay? It's past the boomer bedtime. Anyways, the IRGC, the bottom line with all of this is the IRGC knows what it must do. And the standard for America succeeding in this campaign, this excursion, as Trump would call it, which is a war and we all know it, the standard for success for America compared to for the IRGC is radically different. The IRGC's success will simply come if they can just stay in hiding. A strategy we've seen play out in the Middle East now several times throughout my life, my short young millennial life. I've seen this strategy play out several times already in the Middle East. It's full of mountains. It's full of hiding spots. They wear fucking burqas. You can't tell who's who. And so they hide and they just wait. And they commit isolated acts of terror to disrupt things, and they draw out expense costs. Keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed will be more expensive for us in the long run, and they're desperate enough to send suicide boats after the oil tankers. They're radical and zealous enough to do that. On top of it, all of the high-ranking leaders will just go into hiding. And there's so many mountainous ranges in Iran that they can hide pretty much indefinitely, most likely. Unless, of course, we're willing to send in boots on the ground and comb the area out. But boots on the ground even isn't guaranteed to yield that result that we want. And it's political poison. You think it's bad now with Trump's approval rating and how it's going to tank and how the GOP will fail in the midterms in catastrophic fashion with us striking Iran via our military, our Navy and our Air Force? Wait till they send boots on the ground in. That will be the end of it. And Trump knows this. And that's why we tried to bribe the Kurds into fighting for us once again. But all reports are indicating that the Kurds have actually refused this time. Probably once again something the Pentagon didn't see coming. But they've refused because they want to be recognized as their own state, the Kurdish state. And they know, based off of the past, that we will arm them to use them as human meat shields to fight for us in ways we don't want to fight. We don't want to send our soldiers in to die. And they know that the second that we've accomplished even halfway what we want, we'll abandon them. So they've decided that they don't want to participate in this one. No, the Kurds actually apparently will not be helping us wage a civil war in Iran. And if you actually want regime change, which this administration can't make up its mind, do they want regime change or don't they want regime change? Israel certainly wants something more than we do. And if we decide that regime change is important still, and if we decide that the regime change that we just forced, because we already got it, make no mistake, Mojtaba Khamenei is the regime change. We couldn't control the outcome is the problem. Surprise, surprise. I said that day one on this channel. When we kicked off on this war on a Saturday at 4 a.m. I went live. I said we can't control the outcome. It's a roll of the dice. Well, surprise, surprise. We got regime change, which is, it seems, in part what we wanted. It's just not the outcome we wanted. And if Mojtaba Khamenei can stay in hiding and stay alive, well, he's the new supreme leader. And if we can't kill all of their military, which by the way numbers in the 1 million number range, about 1.1 million total Iranian regime military forces, well, we have to send boots in the ground, and all they have to do is survive. They just have to draw it out for God knows how long, and it'll become more expensive for us, and eventually we'll be the ones that pull out in disgrace, and the regime will stay intact. And this is a historical precedent. This has already happened. It's not like I'm pulling this out of my ass. Just go back into the mid-2000s and examine what happened in the Middle East then. We did not succeed then, and I hate to say it because I want to say America succeeds. I'm an American nationalist. But we very likely won't succeed now. And that's because the bar is different for each country. Our bar is total regime change, Persian liberation, Israel regional hegemony. You may as well throw that in there. We are certainly fighting for that for them. Our bar is way higher. No ballistic missiles. We got to take out the imminent 47-year imminent threat there. Our bar is way different. Their bar is literally, we just got to survive. We just got to hide and wait it out. And they will do it. Or they'll at least try to. So, worse yet, I covered this yesterday and I said this. Our goal in the Middle East is different from Israel's, which will create a divergence. And it's something that we're very likely on the verge of seeing play out already. Because our goal was to, at least what we're being told, eliminate nuclear threat, because that would be a threat to America if, hypothetically, Iran was developing that. I'm not convinced they were. And I think a lot of reports are indicating that they weren't even close, which again just proves that this was a senseless war. But besides the point, our goal there was first and foremost, apparently, to eliminate weapons of mass destruction or any possibility of Iran obtaining that. Secondly, our goal was regime change. And then thirdly, they threw in for virtue signaling purposes to make all detractors feel like jackasses, Persian liberation. Israel's goal is much different. Israel has already stated in their local media, Persian liberation, does it happen, doesn't it? Doesn't really matter. Not their goal at all. Israel doesn't care. Israel's main goal is regional hegemony. And I stated this at the beginning, and I'll state it again. And in order to accomplish that, Iran needs to be in a severely weakened state. Because Israel is the country that has the nukes, but the Iranian ballistic missiles are cheap and quick to make, along with their drones, and that was still a defensive threat to Israel. Israel realized that even if they tried to go into Iran, Israel knows they can't just launch nuclear weapons for no reason, and so Israel realized with all those ballistic missiles, Iran's a serious threat to us. They're the counterbalance in the Middle East, and Israel can't have that. If Israel wants the greater Israel region established and they want regional hegemony, Iran must go. And it must go at all cost because, like I explained at the beginning of the stream, this was a major gamble on Israel's part and Trump's part for different reasons as well. But Israel's gambling on the fact that they're already losing support in the U.S. with the youth. The under 40 demographic is at, I think, 45 to 48% non-approval of Israel now. That number is going to get worse, certainly now, but it was already trending on getting worse to the point of where the majority of under 40-year-olds don't support Israel. That will happen. That will likely happen by 2028. You'll see probably 53% of under 40 doesn't support Israel anymore. By 2032, that number will be higher. And it's going to get, it's whatever pace it was on to get higher will be magnified now with this war. And that's the gamble. The gamble with Israel was they saw the writing on the wall. They saw the bridge between America and Israel already on fire. And they decided basically, fuck it. Fuck it, it's not going to get better. We may as well burn the bridge down entirely by using America and its military to accomplish this one last task for us. And that task, of course, is Iran, right? And so Israel, this is a must for Israel because Israel, we all know, cannot survive without the United States currently. Despite what propaganda you'll hear from the Israeli nationalists about how it's reverse, according to them, somehow, in their made-up fantasy world, without Israel, America doesn't survive. Because Israel is the only thing holding the Middle East at bay. You don't understand. If Israel goes away, those Middle Easterners, they'll destroy America. Yeah, fucking right. Never bought that for a second. Most of these Middle Eastern countries don't even have pilots. They can't even reach us. But we all know it's the opposite, and we all know Israel can't survive without America. If America disappears today, Israel's fucking flattened. If Israel disappears today, America's doing just fine still. And we all know this to be true. And so the major gamble here is on Israel's part. Again, like I said, they're burning down the bridge in exchange for one last great favor that they know will permanently seal the deal on the youth of America despising them. And so this must succeed. This must succeed for them, objectively speaking. That's how they're going to view this. Iran must be destroyed or left in such a weakened state that they can move forward with their greater Israel plan. This is just the truth. And so with those goals being that different, obviously Trump is facing different pressures. Trump is facing a timeline pressure, and Trump is facing an image-based pressure because of the midterms. This looks terrible, and it's continuing to look worse. We haven't locked down the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran is continuing to fight. And we got the regime change that they said this was about, but it's now a regime change that is worse, more dangerous for Israel and America. Mojtaba Khamenei, who watched a school be blown up with 140 children, or somewhere around that number, dozens of children dying. Mojtaba Khamenei, who watched his father be blown to smithereens, along with his wife and daughters. Mojtaba Khamenei, who is rumored to have lost a leg in these Tehran strikes himself, is going to be more radicalized. He's younger than Ali Khamenei was by about 30 years, and he's, according to reports, even more conservative in that region. So he's going to be more radicalized. He's only going to hate Israel and America even more. And that's why it's so important for this administration to find him and, quite frankly, kill him. But the problem, like I stated, is they're good at hiding, and there's mountainous regions there. There's already been historic attempts to conquer Iran in the past, and it failed because of the mountainous regions. This will be no easy task for us. Soldiers now in the U.S. are being fed lobster and steak. MAGA cheerleader channels, of course, are saying, this is wonderful. Wow, Trump must really love our troops, and Pete Hegseth just cares. I don't know how you don't know this, but that literally means boots on the ground deployment. And I said episodes ago on this channel that was very likely imminent. Boots on the ground was very likely imminent. It seems more imminent now. It's actually our only hope to actually establishing what we want in Iran. But that, of course, means a prolonged excursion there. And the timeline for Trump, he's going to feel more pressure, way more pressure, to the point of where, the Pentagon is rumored to be preparing for a 100-day event, or even worse, it's rumored that they're preparing for this to last until September. This will be a disaster for the GOP, and it's going to get worse for Trump behind the scenes. More House Republicans are going to be calling him, begging him to end this. Meanwhile, with Israel, if Trump ends this right now with Mojtaba Khamenei as the supreme leader, this is terrible for Israel. So Israel is incentivized to keep our U.S. military presence there and keep it there strong, and to keep suckering Trump in and convincing him to stay here. It's going to diverge. You're going to see a divergence, and it's going to happen soon, sooner rather than later. What will happen, by the way, what's the worst case scenario if this happens this way, it plays out this way, where Trump feels like this has to stop now no matter what? So Mojtaba Khamenei stays as the supreme leader, and the Iranian regime's not toppled really. When it comes to, they've all been replaced, their military's still going strong, and they still have control over Iran, and they're still producing ballistic missiles and drones. What does Israel do then? If America decides, you know what, we can't keep doing this, we got to pull out. Israel's going to get desperate. Israel went all in on this. And if it doesn't succeed the way that they want, God only knows what could happen. I mean, anything could happen at that point. And the worst part is you wouldn't even be able to tell, right? Let's talk about 9/11. There's good reasons to question 9/11, I think, right? And I'm not here to confirm or deny the conspiracy theories centered around that. But what I am here is to remind the audience, of course, that false flag operations are something that people speculate on all the time. If we pulled out of the Middle East because the midterm pressure is too great and Trump's realizing this was not what they predicted it would be, and he needs to pull out now, Israel gets desperate. Iran hates us even more now. We face an attack on our domestic soil, let's say. Who did it? That's the question. And how can we even tell? But what does it mean if that happens? Well, we're back in, right? We can't ignore that. So we're back in. That's an outcome I could see happening. Worse yet, if that fails or never takes place and Israel gets even more desperate, well, Israel's already dropped the N-word, as Trump calls it, the nuclear option. Israel's already talked about this. Trump has actually mentioned it in passing as well. And if that happens, that's like, I don't know if this is the correct way to say this, but that's like an open window shift from a geopolitical and war standpoint. that's like war taboo, right? Like that's the one thing we all acknowledge universally across the globe that cannot happen. The idea is every country despises the idea of using nukes. But I could foresee something like that happening, where a nuke is launched because Israel gets desperate, and they're desperate for this. They're desperate for regional hegemony, and they went all in on this gamble, knowing that this will seal the deal with the under 40 and under 45 crowd in America hating Israel forever now, and rightfully so. I mean, this war was just so unjustified and unmerited, right? But here we are. And so Israel made the bet, and they're in now, and it must succeed. That's the underlying story here. That's the main thing I wanted to address. It's a warning. It's a warning, and it really does reaffirm what I'm saying here. War is always a roll of the dice. You can never predict the outcomes. You can never set a timeline or a deadline on war, and it could get a lot worse. So that's what I wanted to say. I'll take a look at some of the chats here. I'm a Persian. Don't die for Israel, Yankee, says Pezman Toli 666. Yeah, that's becoming a growing sentiment here in America. James Fishback, running for governor of Florida, signed a Marine Reserve's helmet with as such. No American should die for Israel. We're at a point now where this is a watershed moment for a lot of people, and a lot of the MAGA cheerleaders are lagging behind. But I actually think more of them will start seeing it over time. I do. And that's why this channel exists. It's one of the reasons why. You know, I created this channel truthfully to report on all of the accomplishments of Trump, which was taking place this time last year when I created the channel. Now it's to just report on the truth. And sadly, I'm doing so at Trump's expense, but it needs to be done. So, by the way, please be sure to like the stream if you haven't already. It helps the stream perform well in the algorithm. And listen, if you're appreciating what I'm saying, you're liking the reporting here, you're enjoying the channel, then definitely subscribe to this channel, American Advocates, for more content like this. And make sure post notifications are turned on. I also have my X community link pinned in the chat, or at least it should be pinned there. Please consider following me on X and joining my community there. X is very engagement-based algorithm, so I really need people to follow me there and help form some sort of a group there the way that all of the major talking heads do. They all have their own threads that notifies each other of when they're posting so that they can signal boost each other. And if you don't have that, you post stuff and you get like 30 impressions and then it dies. So consider following me on X as well. I'll take a look at more chats though. Imagine being a monarcho-Zionist in 2026. I cannot at this point. It's a very boomer stance to have. I'm an American, come from a military family back to World War II. I support America first, not wars in Jesus' name. Says keep it real. Hopefully you mean in Jesus' name, like so be it, because this is not a war being done in Jesus' name. Judaism doesn't even recognize Jesus the Messiah, unless you're a Messianic Jew. And those are the Jews I do support, but go figure, there's like, what, 15,000 of them total in Israel out of millions? So it's not being done in Jesus' name, it's being done in Israel's name, and they don't recognize Jesus. 2 months ago, the terrorist regime in the IRGC killed 50,000 children, men, and women in Iran within 2 days, using military weapons, tanks, and committing a form of genocide. That's true. I'm not a pro-Iran regime guy. I've said that before. And I don't put disclaimers automatically on my statements. I'm a man. I speak what's on my mind, and I mean it. So, but if you're going to say that, I'll still agree with it, obviously. And I have said it before in the past. So I'll say it again, I guess. This is not a pro-Iran channel. It's certainly not a pro-Muslim channel. I pray to God and Jesus to save Iran and not give Israel more American blood. So do I. What would you do if you knew the answers, says Eddie? Well, I would speak the truth even more so if I knew the answers, obviously. Yes, but they are sanctioned, so I don't expect paradise from there, says Scruffy. Bro, read the end times and Revelation. Read it. This is all about prophecy. It's not about prophecy. I know you're talking about the third temple, and I know you're talking about, but honestly, that comes from a fundamental lack of understanding of Revelation, which is already hard enough to understand, granted, and up for interpretation sometimes. But the third temple that you see being developed, being created as patches for the Israeli Defense Force soldiers is not the temple. It's not the temple that automatically has Christ come down and sit on. People confuse that all the time. The third temple will be desecrated by the Antichrist. That's what's important to understand first and foremost. A great ruler descends from the north after that temple is supposedly built. We don't even know. The third temple's construction is already debated as it is, whether or not it'll actually happen. But with a lot of those verses, that's desecrated by the Antichrist. This is not for forcing Jesus to return. It's arrogant and foolish, and why Christian Zionism is an oxymoron. It's heresy, it's stupidity. We don't tell Jesus when to come back. We don't tell God when he's coming back. It says, no man knows the date or time, not even the Son. Only God knows that time, and he's already determined the time. How arrogant and idiotic for us to say this needs to happen so Christ can return. No, it doesn't. And we should not be actively advancing the end times. I believe as a Christian, we are called to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world, which of course means preserving the world's morality and preserving this earth as we were called to do, even back in Genesis, in accordance to our original creation purposes, to be good stewards of this world. And so, forgive me, perhaps it's the boomers that just have nothing to live for, the individualistic, amoral, sexual liberation generation that wants Christ to return. How about you just decide to hit the deceased line and be sure to be forgiven of your sins first? Go visit God in heaven. I have a full life left to live, and I'm called to a higher purpose down on this earth, and I'm intent on fulfilling that purpose. And I want to live a full life. Granted, I know that's spoken out of in part some ignorance, because I can't fathom what heaven's like. But the bottom line is, I'm a young millennial. I just started hitting my 30s. And I believe that I'm called to a higher purpose. I believe God has a plan for my life, and I'm going to fulfill that plan. And I don't believe that it's our calling at all as Christians to actively advance the end times. We're called to preserve this earth, and if we did a good job of that, that would actually mean delaying the end times. That would mean restoring our societies to morality. That would mean bringing about a spiritual, what's it called? Reformation. We need to fix America. This channel is American Advocates. It's about restoring America to its glory and restoring Christianity in its proper place, which is, of course, Christianity and the church is supposed to be the guardian of society's morality. So that's my purpose down here. My purpose is not to advance the end times. My purpose is to restore society and bring about morality. We need a spiritual reformation in this country. We don't need the end times. The end times are full of horrors, and the end times are an indicator, ultimately, of Christianity failing. Christ has to return not because we did a good job, but Christ will have to return because we failed. I don't know what's not to understand about that. But it does sicken me. And there's so many generations, by the way. So many generations have lived convinced that they were going to see the end times. And what do they do? What does that do to your mindset? Well, it intrinsically creates this mindset of, well, it doesn't matter. Christ is coming back. I'm here to succeed. I own 2 businesses. I'm doing this on YouTube. I have a lot going for me, and I have plans for my life. And so does God. And so I'm going to live my life as if I'm going to live a full life, because there's a chance that that's what happens. Just like that's what happened with all of the other past generations who foolishly sat around doing next to nothing, assuming that Christ was coming back. Your entire focus should not be on the end times. That's a guaranteed way to ensure that you're not living life properly. I know the Bible says live every day as if it's the last, and that's important from the standpoint of living to the best, living to your best, and always upholding virtuous and moral values. But when it comes to your purpose down here, I assume I'm going to live a full life, and there's a better chance that I will. And so I'm going to live my life that way. Wait, Glenn says stop everything. Why? Did I miss a super chat? Steve, oh yeah. Sorry, Glenn. Yes, I did. Stop everything. Tuition for Steven's education he got tonight. Absolutely. Not just an education, but a sermon, too, that I wasn't counting on giving. Prophecy is jumping from pages, though. Prophecy also jumped from the pages in the first century Rome as well, by the way. Emperor Nero. Go read about the history of Emperor Nero in first century Rome and then read Revelation and you'll go, oh my God, this already all happened. Imagine that. So, history's cyclical. Many generations have felt that they have the right to believe they're in the end times, and then you know what happened? They died, and Christ didn't come back during their lifetime. That's why it's a foolish endeavor. Restore to what? The slavery age? Wow, what a goy. What an absolute swine. Restore to what? The slavery age? Shut up. Bro, you know what you're saying. You're amazing. We're in Satan's little season. We're in the fourth turning. We're in Satan's little season. And the fourth turning is truthfully going to be Gen Z. Why I don't believe the end times are happening just yet, in all honesty, I believe we're in what's called the fourth turning, which is the destruction of the old guard and all of its ideals. And who's the old guard? Whose ideals are being destroyed? Boomers. What are boomers known for? They're known for living through the sexual revolution, which of course was the moral degradation of our society, right? The boomers are the most selfish and entitled generation to have ever existed. They're the generation currently that had it easier than their parents and has it easier than their offspring. Everything under the boomers' watch in America was sold out overseas, and it was done so at our expense, knowing that it would be at our expense, and we're the ones expected to cover for it. The boomers were the ones that decided, you know what? Society's about being individualistic. It's all about me. It's all about me. I'm going to live my life and grab as much as I can, right? That's what we're turning away from. Gen Z, especially, has identified this problem. And we're in the fourth turning. The fourth turning is symbolic of the old guard holding on to their values as tightly as possible, while the young generations come up and seek to destroy all of it. And the tighter you squeeze, it's like sand, the more seeps through your fingers. Ultimately, of course, the old guard is hitting the ceased line too. So the future is inevitable. And the future is Gen Z. Millennials will take part in that too, of course. But the future is Gen Z. And Gen Z is becoming more religious. Granted, they're moving more towards Catholicism than Protestant Christianity, which hurts my soul, but I understand why. Catholicism is more rigid, more structured, appears to be stronger than weak Western Protestantism. But nevertheless, it is religion and it is God, and Gen Z men especially are moving more in that direction. That's indicative to me of a reformation underway, a spiritual renaissance that could be on the horizon. And it's why I always say, don't take the black pill. Don't be a doomer. There is hope for America still. And we should act every day as if there is hope, and we should act every day as if we want to advance that hope and create the change we want to see in our own country. Gen Z understands this. Gen Z has this ability to form this collective thought that I've never seen in the older generations. You talk to Gen Z men, and even the ones that politically disagree to some degree have this collective thought amongst them. They agree on major points, and they're major points that are beneficial to this country, major point changes. So I see a lot of potential and hope in the future. And certainly, yes, I see the writing on the wall with Revelation jumping off the pages and this Middle East war. Middle East war, what's new? What's new? Middle East war, oh my God, I've never heard of that before. I've only ever read that, I don't know, 100 times throughout history, but this one's the end times. Give me a break. I'm certainly not praying for that. I believe I'm down here to do more than that. I don't believe I'm down here to just, and I don't believe in the rapture anyway, but regardless. I always have to laugh at those people. Don't you understand? Christ? Yes, of course, the Bible promises Christ is coming back. Yes, we're in the end times. The end times happened after Christ's resurrection. We've been in the end times for 2,000 something years now, okay? Or close to that. Yeah, of course, we're in the end times. Yes, wow, no brainer. Yeah, we're in the end times. We've been in those. I'm not going to live my life focusing on that. The Bible is a history book, and people try to turn it into a future book. Well, I don't agree with you fully on that one, Bold as a Lion. I know you've mentioned that before, and I do agree in a lot of ways on that, but I believe that the Bible is full of prophecy yet to be fulfilled, and I understand where people come from on the Bible being a history book. I already made the point about how Revelation reads like first century Rome, right? So, and that's true, but I do believe that there are prophecies in there that will be yet to be fulfilled, but I also don't believe in sitting down and trying to comprehend all of those, because the future is not for us to decide or really closely examine. That's God's job. He's in control of that. So I live my life day by day, truthfully, and I do my best to honor God. Man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. That's how I choose to live my life. I'm not focused on, well, within the next 10 years, my God, the third temple is going to be built and then Christ is coming back. I'm not worried about it, okay? So, Google how many times the end times has been predicted. Hilarious, says misbehaving. Yes, exactly. I'm aware too, trust me. I don't know the exact figure off my head, but I've already read all the stories. Me generation, says Ricardo Murillo. That was the boomers, still is too. Ask anybody in the service industry who's the most dreadful people to deal with. It's boomers. They're a disgusting generation as a whole. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me, though. I made all the points I wanted to make today. I didn't even mean to get too religious today, though I do plan on getting more religious every Sunday, so that's why you guys should subscribe to this channel once again. This Sunday, I actually plan on discussing the topic of Christian Zionism and why that's a ridiculous term right there. Just like last Sunday, I covered why Judeo-Christian was heretical. Judeo-Christian is an oxymoron, and it's Luciferian language. So this Sunday I'll be covering Christian Zionism, but more importantly, this is mostly a political channel, so I'll be going live pretty much every day, and most I'll be discussing politics, of course. So be sure to subscribe, like the stream if you haven't already. It's not too late. And thanks to everybody for watching. I appreciate you guys. Don't take the black pill. Glory to America. God bless the USA, and God bless all of you.